Okay, episode 6 of Made in Abyss, the second season. A lot to unpack in this episode. Very action-packed episode. I think they did a phenomenal job on it. Like, great animation. They had, obviously, just Kaja was really the only thing that was CGI throughout the most of it. I think pretty much everything else was hand-drawn. It looked really incredible. A lot of these really huge, epic battling and huge, massive things, breaking up bridges and stuff. It all played out very well. Fantastic job from the studio. As always, it seems like Kinema Citrus just pours massive amounts of love into Made in Abyss, and I'll eat up every single bit of it. But aside from the action, yes, quite a bit really insinuated. Like a lot of insinuation in this episode. Not really anything 100% confirmed, which is fun to speculate over, but at the same time is kind of frustrating. But yeah, because of that, I took way too many dang notes. Let's start from the very beginning. Riko obviously is carefully thinking about what can I really get rid of. Like it really sucks because this is a point which it really kind of instills upon the viewer. Riko really cares for Nanashi. Obviously, Nanashi saved her life. Nanashi has done a lot for her. It does make sense. But at the same time, Riko is really literally right here about to make a decision. She was going to say, if you could make it not hurt, go ahead and take, and that's when she stopped. She was literally going to give up something of hers, whether it be her eyes, her intestines, her legs. I think, honestly, I believe she was going to give up her legs. This is kind of a fun thing to kind of speculate on. I would love to hear from you guys down in the comments. What do you believe she was going to give up her legs? I don't think she was going to give up her intestines because she didn't believe if she could survive without them. But she was technically calculating, well, I've heard of blind explorers. Regu can carry me. I can lose my legs. I think what she chose in the end was going to be her legs, because I believe that she was going to be fine with Regu carrying her, but at the same time, I believe that she wanted to see what was ahead of her. I think her eyes are what is her. She can't explore, she can't travel, she can't see the wonders of this abyss without her eyes. So I don't think she was going to give up those. And again, I don't think she was going to give up her intestines because I don't believe she knew if she was going to survive or not. Technically, both Nanashi and Kaja pretty much say the same thing. Once you give up something, it's all over. Your journey's done. Which again is going back to an insinuation that once you do that transaction, once you become value and you've made that transaction, your journey ends. Like insinuating that you're stuck here. Like you are done. You can no longer leave this place. And I think that's the case with all the villagers. Once they've made that transaction, they become a part of this village essentially. Nanashi specifically says, if you end up like this, then it's all over. Again, saying not to do this. Don't, just leave me be. I'm fine as I am. Please leave. And I wonder if Nanashi here is meaning this in the idea, not necessarily meaning this in the idea that you can't find a way to get me out of here if you do this, but really more for the sake of Riko. If you do this transaction, you're stuck here, and what you're after, you'll never be able to see it. You're not going to be able to leave this place and find your mother. But yeah, Riko's obviously upset. We plan to go to the bottom together, so she's obviously going to seek out some way of getting her out of that. And she seeks from Vueko, do you know some way that I can get Nanashi back? Which it seems like Vueko knows, but immediately kind of goes, oh, but there's this thing going on. The luring's happening. Let's go check out the luring. It's almost as if Vueko knows a way of breaking the system, but she doesn't want to say it. Or believes that whatever she does outside of a transaction is going to lead to her, yes, being stuck there, or the balancing happening against Riko. But yeah, that's where we find out about the luring. What is the luring? What I got out of this whole situation is that because they can't leave, they can't increase their value, because they can't go out and find things to increase their value, that they decide to lure things into the actual village. And once it's in the village, they attack it and try to destroy it. Now, the weird thing that happens is that this thing that comes inside starts to consume the villagers. And Riko's like, but they're all getting destroyed. And she's like, yeah, they are, technically. And they're also increasing value. Like, it almost made it as if, like, it's almost like they're allowing it to come in to consume the villagers so that they can destroy it and thus get the value to themselves. But yeah, I think the original goal is to bring something in and destroy it. But they actually find out at some point later on that this thing that has been lured in was one of them. Now, this is a really curious thing because, again, previously we established that the villagers can't leave once they become a value. Their transaction's done and their journey ends. But is it all a mental thing? Like, their value's here. If they leave, they lose it, because this thing left. They said this thing at some point did something and the balancing happened, and before they were almost completely shredded, they escaped the village. And now it's come back. Unless I messed up and Kaja was referencing the shop owner, which I don't think it was, because the shop owner got really big and started fighting it, and the thing was chomping down on it, and then he noticed a scar, which again I think was the the shell. But either way, what we find out later on from Wazukyan as he comes in is that this thing is technically a queen. What essentially happens is the blobs that are around it, essentially, they're like males that they all gather to a nest. And when they gather enough and they become big enough, it becomes a queen. This nest becomes the queen, and it's able to come in here. So as they're fighting it and all these little tentacles are going out and grabbing things, the core is the queen. And once they destroy it, it breaks apart, and then the males will take each of them, go away, and try to build up more males to the point that it becomes a queen again, which was kind of fascinating. Which makes me believe that maybe what Kaja was referencing as being this guy that was once in the village was the shell. That they made the nest that these males made this big, huge, gigantic queen out of was the corpse, the shell of this thing that was once in the village. So insinuating that, yes, the bouncing happened, this thing fled the village, it died because it can't leave the village, and then these males came in and made a nest out of it, which created this queen. I don't know. It's all weird. This entire show is weird, and I love every minute of it. It's just it's so odd. Anyways, getting back to the whole play out of things, they eventually realize it's going towards a shop. Riko rushes over there because Prushka's still there. That's when we kind of find that this shop owner has crafted Prushka into this flute. He said that he looked at the stone's insignia and fashioned it into an instrument. It's a stone of precious value, but I can't bring out that value more than I already have. He says the stone itself insists on being with you and gives the Riko. Doesn't even ask for anything. Like there's no balancing here. There's no value exchange. It literally says I can no longer do anything. I can't bring more value out of this. You can. Take it. And he also mentioned they got extremely happy when the shop owner got really happy by carving this thing, which was a very interesting statement. Technically, carving these things is its value. This is the thing that it finds value in, so it makes sense that this thing was so amazing, it made them that happy. But no, it can't leave because it's a part of the shop, so it becomes this big, huge thing, which fights the thing and eventually dies. That's when we see the appearance of Juroimo. Now, this is the interesting part, because they call him Juroimo of the Three Sages. Doesn't say that they are one of the three sages, just that they are of the three sages. And while Riko's asking where's the other sages, why aren't they coming out to fight this thing, they say they don't unless the membrane is broken. Almost as if this thing gets to the center of the village, this membrane somewhere in there, that's when you'll see the three sages show up. Otherwise, they don't get involved. But oddly enough, Juroimo does. And he says that that's because this thing loves to fight. Juroimo loves to fight. That's where they find their value. But again, going back to my previous statement, this is an odd thing to claim that this thing is of the three sages. But again, it doesn't say that it is one of the three sages, which makes me curious. Like, when I hear three sages, I think three people that are sages. Belaf, Vueko, and Wazukyan. But maybe, again, Vueko isn't a sage anymore. Maybe once Vueko left and they shun her into this darkness, maybe this person became one of the sages. So maybe it's Belaf, Wazukyan, and now Juroimo. Or again, that of the three sages implies that this is somebody that was of the original group that had the three sages leading it. So implying that Juroimo was somebody that was from the original group, the original, the Ganja squad. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, it's not doing well. It's getting its butt kicked. It can't use its legendary sword very well. Eventually, Riko sees all the market people show up because it's going towards a market. And that's when Riko springs in action. She observes it, try to figure out what's going on with this creature, and really to find out what its weakness is. And discovers that this thing is possibly as light as air. So she sacrifices her hair to make Kaja into like some speed vehicle thing, and then uses that to lure out in this location where they attack it, use fire to push it up, this net to bring it back down, and all of them attack it at once. And when they think it's down, all the males, now that this queen is dead, all the males go out and they start attacking again. And then Ma jumps up and saves Riko, gets pulled away, and then, yes, Riko hears the voice of Prushka telling her to call out to me. Blows the whistle, and then Regu in an instant shows up. His helmet and everything's all like whitish. His skin seems a lot more tannish. But yeah, he says, give me a command. I heard it. I sensed everything the moment that whistle was blown, and I knew exactly where to come. Give me your orders. He says specifically the feelings of scenery, thoughts came flooding in. And that's when he realizes that's what the white whistle's power is. And then Riko recovers the words of Bondrud, which was that the timber has the power to draw out the true purpose of relics. implying that this whole process and what they've made Prushka into is this thing that can draw out the best, like this core power of relics, which is implying what Regu is. But yeah, she blows it again, and it seems like he understands what she's commanding him to do, not to use his super... He could be saying this because he realized he can't use it, but it seems to imply that Riko, in blowing that whistle, whatever she commands of him, he knows exactly what to do. And again, like I said, if that's the case, then she's basically telling him, attack, watch out for the tentacles, and don't use your super laser gun thing, because you're going to blast everything in this village. Which is, like I said, very interesting. Very, very interesting little layout. And it gets better. Ougonkyou decides to stroll in at the last minute. Oh, it's already over. I guess everything's done. All the festivities are done. Everybody's done. I guess we're just going to have to do some cleanup. I showed up right at cleanup. And he explains exactly what this thing does. And Riko's like, well, why didn't you tell anybody? It's like, oh, well, everybody loves this. Everybody loves the luring. Like, everybody's dying. But apparently everybody loves it. And you can see, yeah, Ma's over there super happy. It's like, again, these people can't leave this place. So this is exciting to them. This is a chance for them to get riches, to increase their value. They all love it. And for some reason, Riko immediately asks him, well, how can I get Nanashi back? I don't know exactly why her mind goes immediately to that. Like, oh, Ougonkyou's here. Let me ask him how to get Nanashi back. To which he replies, about the only thing I can think of is if you were to get something of Fapata. Because Fapata is the embodiment of value, like any part of Fapata would probably be enough. And then leaves. Which we find out later, according to Vueko, at this point, Ougonkyou walking up to Riko and Regu, he was terrified. Like, we don't know what the heck's on his face, but Vueko knew he was terrified. He was terrified of Regu, because Regu apparently is one of these true residents of the Golden City. It's very, very interesting. Like, this is what sucks. Like, this thing, I mean, this is a fun episode, great episode and everything, but like at the very end, it just feels like it's ramping up to, all right, it's time. Vueko's going to tell us everything that happened, and then cut. It just cuts. It sucks. It so sucks. But yeah, everybody kind of meets up inside of this room to try to figure out what they can do to get Nanashi back. It seems like everybody decides to join. We have Kaja in there. We have Mugi's in there. We have Regu, Vueko, Ma. Everybody's just chilling in this inn room, and they're all trying to figure out what they can do to get Nanashi back. And obviously at this point realizing, okay, well, how do we find Fapata? Regu at this point says, okay, cool. I'll go find Fapata again. I need to talk to her anyways. I'll see what I can do. But as Riko's trying to ask Vueko who Fapata is, Mugi interrupts and says, wait, who are you, Vueko? Like, how do you know who Fapata is? Why do you know all this stuff about the village? Well, I've never heard of you before. And Kaja's like, yeah, I've never stiffed you before either, and I've been here a long time. Shut up, Kaja. But yeah, this is when it starts to build up into, okay, Vueko at this point is going to tell the story. And she puts it in a way that she's like, whatever I tell you is really going to kind of, there's no turning back. Once I tell you, like, eventually I'm probably going to get caught, and I'm probably not going to be able to tell my story at that point. If somebody finds out that I've escaped, my story is never going to be told. So are you sure you want to hear this? And of course, Riko, being what she is, she's like, well, if I'd never get here if I was somebody to say, I don't want to hear. But this is what she opens up saying, because time is different here than the outside world, I don't know how long ago this was, but this is where the story begins. And then it stops. And all we get after this point is really Vueko in her mind talking to Irumui, which again, I assumed that Fapata was going to end up being Urumui, this little tribal girl that they found when they first arrived at the Abyss. But it seems like based on how she's talking right now, she's talking directly to Urumui. She's not talking to Fapata. So it's kind of starting to break that aspect. But my thought process is still in the idea that I think that Fapata might be a spawn of Urumui, because it does have her talking directly to Urumui in her head, but it's to this core that we see in the opening. There's a spoiler. That's exactly what that was implying in the OP at this point where she embraces Urumui. Urumui then kind of drops in her hand as this gem. That's what the OP was insinuating there. But I think that the reason why Urumui became this gem is probably because she spawned Fapata. So I think Fapata is going to be a part of her. It's just not going to be her core. But Vueko, in directing her inner thoughts towards her, says, I wonder if you sent these children. Regu must be the thing that you talked about. A true resident of the Golden City. That's where she mentions the idea that, did you see Ougonkyou's face? I'm surprised that at this point he can still be that scared of something. But then she says, cute Urumui, your existence desires memories. The time has now come to dredge that all up again. So again, I think it has this gem shown, and it obviously sounds like a beating heart. So again, I think this is a core that Urumui has gone into, but I believe that this is what spawned Fapata. Now the whole comment about Regu being this this true resident of the Golden City? That's a huge question mark. That again goes back to what I said in last episode, where I was starting to get frustrated with Regu. Like, he's just some sentry that's been sent out. But what that could mean is that the Golden City existed at some point, which was kind of surprising to me. I honestly, this entire time, thought that the Golden City was going to be this village they're in, but apparently the Golden City is something else. But Regu is a true resident of that Golden City, and maybe that he was sent out from the Golden City to check other places, and now he's able to kind of return. At that question, is Fopta, again, a spawn of Irumui, or was Fopta around before then, and is Fopta technically a resident of the Golden City as well? It's a good question. Either way, fantastic episode. Really loved it. Seeing Riko in action was great. Again, a lot of the animation was just really well put together. Not as, detailed and shady like they had with the opening, with a lot of these shots, like her riding on the back of Kaja technically was in the OP as well. But still, really incredible. I forgot to mention, but yes, technically at some point, when Riko asked Vueko about Fopta, she says, "Oh, Fopta, I've never actually had an audience with the princess, but I do know what she desires." So there's another thing that kind of discredits my thoughts that she is going to be some sort of embodiment of Irumui. That she might, again, technically be, in fact, before this whole situation, and yes, technically could be the princess of the Golden City itself. We'll have to see. I am very excited for next episode. Hopefully next episode isn't just, Regu messing around or trying to find Fopta. Hopefully the next episode does get into exactly what it's kind of setting up. Vueko telling the story. We're finally, hopefully, next episode going to get the story of how Vueko got to where she is now. So I'm super excited for next week. Hope you guys will join me for that. I'll probably make a video on it, depending on if it does do anything. Hopefully it does. But I hope you guys know this video. As always, if you did, make sure to hit that like button down below. Comment. Let me know if you thought of this episode. Did I miss anything? Again, if you read the manga, please do not spoil anything. Additionally, if you've not already, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you get all my content. I do news, reviews, first impressions. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you want to support the channel more, we have a Patreon link, a tips link, and a super thanks button down below. Greatly appreciate everybody that considers, and y'all take care.